Work session beginning, so it's 6 o'clock on, Tuesday, January 21st. This is a work, session, budget work session. Let's do roll call first.
Mayor Laughlin.
Here.
Councilperson Horahan.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Coolman absent and Saxon absent.
Let's send you over the tax.
It's gonna repeat some of the assumptions that we talked about last time. And that is a 4% increase in wages. 6% increase in health insurance. 50% increase in liability insurance. 10% increase in utility costs. Gas, electricity. Assuming as of right now, city council passes a franchise fee, but I also have an option. For some reason, there are barriers. With the Iowa Utility Board, I do have that factored in. I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of 2025 property tax reform. That's why you may be able to see there's more one-time expenses than there are long time. Longer term expenses, and I'll go over those. Just to highlight, comprehensive plan, office staff transition, 5-officer. Police department, park improvements, increasing fire department on-call pay. Saving for water filter replacements. And then, as you guys will see in the end of your packet, solid waste will be increased regardless of who you go with.
That's a pass through. Pass through. Step budget.
I'm budgeting just, I'm budgeting the increase. I'm not picking which one. I just basically did 10-15%. So that's a good question.
Since we're on the garbage part of it, I know a couple years ago, we discussed taking the tipping fee and dispersing that through the
Water bill.
water bill. Where do we stand on that? I know originally we were raising the water bill, we were raising the sewer bill, we didn't really want to pass that increase on the residents.
We have not done that yet.
I guess I'm okay with still not doing that. It's not a lot of money, I say $15,000-$20,000 a year.
It's like 60,000.
16.
And at this point, it would be my recommendation not to do it because we've already seen a lot of water and sewer increases. And I would,
That's where we were at.
yes.
There's just been a couple changes in general fund that I'll go over. Net surplus is not as high. Gave a little bit more to fire department as requested. There is also a couple of few changes with parks that I'll go over. But I have not reached out to NPS yet on bike grants. I certainly will. We'll do so. And anything else that was changed, water is not quite, it's still in a good position, but not quite as good. I missed one of the recent debts. So it's still fine. It's just not 150,000, it's like 50. So. Talk very quickly about the general fund and the general fund itself. That's a fire reserve, from this year to from next year to this year, there is a cut to the police. However, it's still roughly up 150% plus from the previous years. Fire department expenses will be a 12% increase. Park and rec is, an increase of 27,000. But I also want to kind of reference that 35 of that. 27,000 is coming from local option sales tax, so it's not really an increase. On the general fund itself. Building inspections, 14% increase, and that's more or less to be safe. I'm just assuming. It's an in and an out on revenue and expenses. Library was roughly a 4% increase. They only asked for 2.4. I always add a little bit of cushion on salaries, so that's why it's 4%. The biggest changes really were on these one-time expenses. Cemetery would be for the road improvements, and that's only if the state passes. They don't cut backfill. I assume they might due to upcoming budget cuts, and that's been talked about. So if they cut it, we just won't do the cemetery road. If they keep giving that to us, we're just gonna update the cemetery road. Bigger increase in community development. It seems like a big number. It's only $10,000 more. Essentially, it's for Christmas lights. And the gazebo needs some work out on them. Heritage Square, thank you. Thank you. City Hall, 39% increase. That is for equipment replacement, and it is for track staff transitions. On what happens with the clerk or deputy for the position. The biggest increase is economic development, and that is for the comprehensive plan, which we will talk about later today. And then just out of extra safety, I have, in case Wapsie creek goes way up in cost, I have hypothetically $100,000 that could be transferred out of storm sewer. You wanna flip to like the second page on your summaries. What I highlighted as blue and yellow. Blue essentially means we were under budget on the roundabout. And so I want to transfer that money to either semi-truck rerouting or to Main Street reconstruction. East Side Mains Phase 1, we're $320,000 under budget. So I want to use that to help shore off East Side Mains Phase 2. And then Cedar Johnson Road construction as we're building up debt with the engineering firm. So you've got a couple things going on. I just want to kind of express that I'm trying to help. I guess where you guys did well and where the city did well with its budget on projects, I'm trying to transfer that to the next item.
Got a question for you, and we talked about the downstream flooding funding. I know at one time at the end of Cubby Park construction, didn't we have a $200,000 extra that we were gonna put towards the downstream flooding? Remember that talk?
Yes. And we were thinking, I don't know if it was that much money, but I know there was a surplus and. Cause the discussion we were having was what percentage of that creek widening was going to be in Veronic Park, so. Justifiable, we could use that money. Yeah.
Not that much going down.
No.
It's only like $14,000 left.
In Cubby Park,
In the Cookie Park project.
yeah. You saved a lot to buy some equipment, refrigerators and. Couple of things like that, white producers. Probably.
And I know that Adam had budgeted the rest of that $13,000 some for a project this year. I'm not sure if it's gonna happen. It would be something to do with the sod or something like that, but if it doesn't happen, it can have it budgeted again for next year. But it's not that much.
Semi truck rerouting, that.
Down, down,
Pardon?
yes, go down.
And that's just a matter of signage, isn't it?
And it depends on what you guys want to do. If you want to. Now, Matt had his ideas, and that's something we would have to discuss further. But. I think from his perspective, you have to remove the. No parking, you might have to upgrade. Or resurface.
Resurface.
So. It doesn't necessarily have to go towards that, but it's hypothetically.
I think we should just start with signage and see. Or,
And then we have that fund, it's a signage fund that was. Acciona gave it to us. Yeah, Nordex gave it to us, I mean, a long time ago, we did the wayfinding signs, but. Johnny, I haven't even noticed, are you even still up?
It was like 8,000 now.
Yeah, I mean, for signage, I mean, if it's. As far as that could help pay for the signage for the truck routes too. right? See, if we do.
go ahead, yeah.
Make another one.
And I just want to clarify something, if that's okay. I mean, it's just wording, but I think it's important. When you say 50% cut for the police department, it's not really a cut. I mean, because in FY 25, we inflated their budget for this year so much because we didn't know what was gonna happen, if we're gonna hire certain people in the contract, so it's not really a cut per se, we're just taking it back to what it should be.
So that's that's the only thing when I was looking at it last week and you looked at it. That's not what the paperwork said, you know. Having this discussion and saying, you know, hey, maybe we overreacted with the budget last year, put in too much money. Now it's gonna swing back to where it needs to be. That just needs to be said. Versus our fire department and our police department, we're cutting money to, but we're raising Parks and Rec and the library and stuff like that, because that just don't make sense.
Right, and that's why I wanted to clarify that, but it's not a cut.
So we're trying to get to a normal,
So, right, so
back
if
to
you
a
guys.
normal.
So if you guys remember for this fiscal year, we were not sure if we were gonna be able to hire police officers and how many. We were not sure about uniforms. We were not sure about what our contract was gonna look like with Cedar County or Mount Vernon. So we put all that extra cost there, so we didn't have to amend early on. And so police department budget is way inflated for this year. So like I said, it's not really a cut. It's not that. It's just we're bringing it back to normal, to what it should be.
Thank you, Ivan. At least through the slide, and then we'll kind of go into the details of the expenses. I know a couple of you guys asked what the projected property tax levy rate might be. Still want to make sure that we are going through these numbers multiple times, but as of today, I project it to be around 1277 as a whole. So that's partially due to tax reform, that's partially due to the cities growing really fast. So where we're keeping up with our expenses. So. Into employee benefits. I think if you guys pull up your spreadsheets. Your big long ones. I think you go to.
That's the track.
I'll make sure I'll put it to the second page. Trying to see if it showed up. So on these tort and liability, so we go to the second page. There's tort, which is liability, and then there's trust and agency. That's essentially employee benefits, FICA, group insurance, workers' comp. So one of the things that was brought up last meeting was, how much do we give to the fire department in terms of what else do we give? I try not to include all that stuff in on the first work session, just to not throw too many numbers at you at once. But essentially, if you add up all those numbers in all of these departments, if you were to go through every single department, employee benefits would be roughly 450,000. Expenditures will be roughly 483,000. Why do we have a deficit? I would say if we go back to our actual reserve balance, it's pretty high in employee benefits. Now, I would expect our auditors at some point would say, you need to get that in. Just because it's that high, and that's, we've done the right thing, we just gotta try and find the right way to get that number a little bit better. So I am anticipating us having a deficit for some years in that. Liability,
So we're gonna start pulling out of that. Boy, benefits fund from some of the tort.
correct.
And I would also suggest we keep that tax levy down. As we've talked about before.
If you guys go through that, that is the most updated expenses that I have. And it goes by in order of department essentially, and then it's got those extra liability and employee benefits on the bottom. For local option sales tax, it's gonna be a different year. I don't have it in your sheets. I can give you the other 40 pages of revenue if you want. But essentially. Iowa League of Cities says the state's projecting roughly around a 10% increase. I'm not projecting an increase in case we do franchise fees, because we will get a little bit less. Yes, so I'm just keeping it the same. Also want to make a note. Heidi and I are gonna have to go through. Compare our numbers. But that referendum that we had. Probably has. It has quite a bit of money, and so what I prefer us to do. And Heidi's gonna have to provide her comments too, but what I prefer us to do is I prefer to transfer that. To the Park and Rec. Reserve fund, because that referendum was specifically for parks projects versus the loss we're gonna get this coming year. Is gonna be split between public safety, parks, infrastructure. So I'm trying not to commingle both of those funds.
What's fucking not gonna do with it?
What's that?
$600,000.
It could be as high as that, so I don't wanna say it is, but it could be projected that high. If it is, we'll talk more, that's why I have a park and rec master plan. We're still being a little cautious, but that's where we're pulling from that money to help pay for the extra expenses. for Park and Rec. And then, local option sales tax, we used to pay 200 and some thousand to the park debt. That is down to 23,000. And we might be using a portion of that difference to help pay for the 2025 bond, 2026 bond. I'll have Maggie come in before we do anything, but that was one of her options she presented to try and make sure we weren't raising debt levy too much, was to have some of that local option sales tax go to infrastructure. Let's see what Johnson.
Oh,
So far,
so theoretically then. That $647,000. If something went haywire with the creek widening. And there's actually a little bit we could do with that then, if it was within the parks.
I think it's not. We'd have to make sure with Kevin that that's true. But if it is, yes. we should.
We've always saw a portion of that project's in the park.
But I don't know if it's considered a park improvement. It's the intent.
Be underwater, that's an improvement.
It's not, the intent is to not improve the park, the intent is to improve the water issues. So that's, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not getting into that one.
Okay.
I'll make a note of that one, but it's a good thought. Fifth askings this year is around 547,000. As the same with TIF. It should always be an in and out, it shouldn't really be having extra in TIF. Just to kind of go through where all the TIF money goes. The biggest amount goes through debt, so that's paying off, say, the 2023 bond, the 2016 bonds. If you add all those up, it's 295,000. And kind of my reminder is interest is a big deal. 81,000 on top of that 295,000 is for interest. So Casey's rebate will be roughly 52,000. Meadows Part 4 will be roughly 83,000. That should be the last one going to Meadows. KLM. Little Lights is about 15,000. Parkside's 11,000. Heritage Hill is going to be around 8,000. There's, we assume some of those buildings are going to be assessed. With the county.
Just out of curiosity, I remember right, the Casey's original deal was for $500,000. If we're paying them $52,000 a year, we ought to be getting close to that rate on the two. I think.
I even know one.
We skipped a whole year in 2021. Where we didn't make a payment at all. And then we were not doing as much as we should have, so,
I think some years are in the 30,000.
yeah, we're paying about $30,000 per year. And I think that started in 2022, so there's no.
There's another reminder, in February, I want to bring forward. Some questions to help you guys form. The LMI fund. As a placeholder, I'm putting $30,000, but we are also shifting 131,000 to that LMI fund. So we're getting to that point where we need to be thinking about what type of program. Maybe we'll spend some of that money in this fiscal year, if not, and hopefully the following year. You might have to help me on this one. This one's always bugged me since I've been here, is the a revolving loan
I don't know where
fund.
that came from.
Where it came from, and the reason why I wanna know exactly where it came from the state. I wanna ask them. I guess, we have to keep it there, can we do it?
Was it a grant they gave us
No.
when we became a Main Street
Main
designation?
Street West Branch money. They held it. And the auditors didn't like them holding it.
But he wants to know originally where it came
So
from.
they had to give it back to us.
Yeah, but he wants to know where it originally came from.
No, I don't-
And I think it originally came from when we got our Main Street designation. That was a grant they had given the Main Street program.
Yeah.
And so then the Main Street program wanted to use it as a revolving fund.
Correct.
And then you know why,
We used it to pay for some of the sidewalks.
we used it to pay for the sidewalks.
And then
Originally, we were gonna loan some money to
during
the
COVID,
quilt place too, when they were doing some stuff,
Yeah,
with low interest. I don't know if they paid us back or what, they never took it.
we never took it.
And it was 150. So we're not there because some of the people in the sidewalks, the paperwork didn't get done right, and so they didn't pay us back. I'm not gonna mention that.
So at some point, I wanna sit down. and
I don't know how we can use it. I don't know what,
I think we continue to use it as a revolving loan fund.
like the next phase of downtown sidewalk. Or,
That was the thought in my head. Yeah. But if it's really supposed to be revolving loan fund to like businesses, then that's,
That's what it's really was
Yeah.
its designation.
Yeah. so that makes it. That makes it a little bit different. So,
Well, like when we did the sidewalks last time, we charged the businesses to redo their sidewalks. If I was a business owner, except for the one that didn't pay, I mean, if I was a business owner, I would be mad if I just 10 years ago, you made me redo my sidewalks and I paid them, and now you're gonna do it again. I'd tell you, you should have thought this through.
well, I'm thinking just the north side sidewalk. It's not the south side of Whittier.
Yeah, no, if they don't think they go that side, got nothing.
South sidewalk.
No, the north side.
No.
At least the north side, this side, the north side, the other side, did get
That's done.
so I want to at least discuss this in March or have at least meetings with you when we get through. Some of our LMI feedback. Cause that's gonna help me, I guess. What bothers me is there's money sitting there, can we use it for this or that? And if we're supposed to be helping businesses. It'd be nice to promote that program. It's kind of essentially what I'm saying, but if I don't know how to spend it, I'm not gonna promote it yet. So. Just, we got a couple things to have.
Let it sit for a while.
Debt service, roughly 300,000, is going to come from property taxes. About 2/3 of the debt is gonna come from transfers, that's either from TIF. That could be from water sewer. Could be from lost. There's a lot of things that are included in that transfer, so it's all those. When you're talking with Maggie and she kind of explains to you, you can do X, Y, and Z. The lower the debt rate. That's essentially what she's doing, she's talking about these extra funds, transfers. That you might be able to do to offset property taxes.
But I thought our debt service was supposed to stay the same. That rate stays the same. And then as it actually lowers, then the money was supposed to roll over into that capital
Sure.
improvements fund.
Yes, yes.
The debt service levy, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
The debt service levy is, it's whatever we put for what we owe, in the state form.
I know what he's going for. So. When they first were trying to pass the capital reserve levy. They're gonna have some debt come off, and so they're trying to keep the debt levy number the same, say it's $1 or 1,000. Assessed value, they want to keep it at that dollar. The only issue with that theory is we're growing so much faster than those projections. So we're gonna be under, no matter if we put the capital reserve levy up. It's still gonna be lower, which is good, so,
good.
but we're trying to do what you're saying. Capital reserve levy. Anticipating a revenue of 135,000 this year. By the end of July 2026. That would give us roughly a $400,000 balance as we get closer to. Implementing those items in December's work session. We probably will have some discussions with this money or other reserve money, but. We're getting there, it's just taking time.
That actually makes me smile, because when we were sitting here talking about it and setting it up, what little bit was going into it, we were like,
It's like 30
it
grand.
was like 30 grand, you're like. We're not gonna have no money. That was only about 3 or 4 years ago. So to see that there's almost gonna be having $400,000, that's pretty good.
Here is the current balances for all. Projects, for capital improvement projects. East side. May be used to help out a little bit at Heritage Hill on that sidewalk. 175,000. That was part of the Coral Ready Mix. And what we did my first year here. Was it, we helped? Is it the silos that were 150,000?
50 to help buy the silos, and we got. We had. 300 some thousand in there at the time.
So the debt timing worked well with TIF. So we had an extra 150,000 to ask for. So I just reimbursed that account back. So there is. As we have these. Future discussions on what to do with our reserves. Just know there's that east side right there. Watsy Creek has a little bit. Right now, just because we've transferred some overall. As I've told council and I've told our state legislature, there is, the DOT owes us. Money from that project. The real issue is. There's basically, the bids came in higher, and so. Staff accounting from IDOT or staff transition. And so they never updated. This newer amount, so Dave's working with the DOT. But both. The DOT is aware, and so are state reps. But yeah, it's quite a bit of money that they owe us. But I'm sure we'll get it figured out.
Do we get to tack the 10% interest on?
I'm gonna try my hardest.
He's sent an email out to. 2 of our representatives to that effect.
And they responded to both of them,
No deal.
I know.
I'm sorry, just so that we're on the same page, though, the other capital improvements. I don't think we're gonna make it, we only are at 266,000 right now. We're gonna get a little bit more for this fiscal year, but, I mean, at best, it's gonna be about 300, maybe.
You mean, what do you mean those other capital?
The capital improvement account, the one before, the slide before. So it's, yeah,
Yes, 2025 in July. 2025, it'll be 260, 270. But
Right,
this budget that we're forecasting for in
Right.
2026, it'll be 400,000.
By the end of the year.
End of next year's session.
Does that make sense? Heidi?
Mhm.
Is that, okay.
yeah, yeah.
As kind of mentioned, I gave you that yellow and blue on your bird's eye view. And that's just what I'm showing there is roundabout, we have a positive balance, which is good. We will just use that to pay some of Cedar Johnson Road. Right now, we have 123,000 in bills on that. So we would just transfer those over. And East Side Phase 1. 320,000 is our surplus. So we would use that to pay for the phase 2 deficit. And then we either add that to Cedar Johnson Road or to another project, but
so phase 1, we used the local guy, and we had a surplus. Phase 2, we used the non-local guy, and we had deficit.
And it took longer.
It didn't go that well.
I noticed that as well.
The wastewater treatment money, 62,000. So I talked to Matt a little bit. And he said that the electric bill for the treatment facility, like double, tripled or whatever, even what you guys thought it was gonna be. Would it make sense to do a feasibility on solar? For that out there? I don't know if you need to put that in a budget or something like that. But obviously, there's enough room to put panels and stuff out there.
Mhm.
I know I did feasibility on 3 other buildings. But I don't know if I did the on the sewer, so let me. Yeah,
That's a good idea.
That or see if the little boys will put a windmill up right there. They can just look right out their window and look at it.
Just a small one.
Just enough
A half
to,
a
They're
window.
taking that one down by Cedar Bluffs.
they fell
They're
down,
gone.
they blew up and burned up.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
last for the moment.
they were both gone now.
Yeah.
when Maggie last came. I think she quoted you guys basically just under a $5 million. Budget for Cedar Johnson in West Main. So we likely will bond for that. This next upcoming fiscal year. What I have allocated. Was 4 million for Cedar Johnson. We are. Going to mill and overlay West Main Street, which was. It'll be around 750,000. We're obviously gonna try and do Cedar Johnson this summer. Into the fall. But West Main Street, we're gonna wait until I-80. All that stuff is. still gone.
You're not late. This is a pre-meeting before the.
Oh,
council
okay,
meeting.
you want me to wait on that?
No, you're.
No, you
fine.
can listen to budget stuff.
You can stay away.
These are our permanent funds. 7 cemetery will be, by the end of the next fiscal year, will be right around 150,000. That's funds that can't be used essentially on anything. So until the state changes some of the laws, it's just sitting there for now.
So that's, every city's got money sitting in their cemetery fund.
Not every city, but most cities that have a cemetery, yes, that's an accurate statement. It just depends on when they started that cemetery and when that was set up, so. Growth principal, and then interest. This is all libraries. So these are specific donations given to the library. That they can potentially use, and we'd have to go into the exact donation agreement. In what those can and can't be used for, but those are library specific. Just to kind of repeat. At some point soon. Once Heidi and I hash out numbers and where they're at, I want to talk over reserves with you guys. I know when I first got here, some of council wanted to try and consider what it kind of looks like if we're able to actually self-fund some of these projects. So say hypothetically, 5 years from now, you do a $5 million loan for downtown. You do all this stuff, but we only bond for 4 and we fund for 1. Essentially, if we just spend that $1 million, it would save city or its taxpayers just under $310,000 to not have interest. That's why you'll see me continue to kind of rail in that interest is pretty difficult. So, so you're kind of moving towards that way. Again, I want to make sure that we are correct. I don't want to overstate what we have. I'm just giving you the best information I have at the moment, and I'll continue to update you guys as Heidi starts grilling me and my assumptions. Other than that, I think that is it, unless there's any other questions or comments, anything you wanted to add from last, or is there anything you want to know more about? I would just also say that you guys understanding the budget is very important to me. So if you ever want to meet individually, I can absolutely do that.
Do some grass, like the soccer field and maybe Covey Park, or maybe still. One time we're thinking about our guys doing some of that weed control. Or not, where are we on that?
So I still want to look into it, but I kind of got mixed messages. Because another council member said, well, they're doing a good job, so. I don't know exactly where you guys want to go
I
with
just-
that.
I want to have a good job done,
Oh,
because if we get behind on weed control on like Covey Park or. Then it gets worse.
So I don't know where you guys stand, so I haven't pushed it, I haven't forced and said to Matt, your guys need to be certified, because like,
Maybe we're not ready for that yet.
No.
Okay.
so.
Ask.
You don't have to know what to ask either, just know that I'm open for questions, and a few things will change along the way, as when we get to the March and April formal presentations. And I'll try and keep you updated as those changes happen too.
So we're waiting for our revenue numbers.
We have those now.
Oh, you do?
We have those now. It's just there's 1,600 line items. And to assume that I get all of those correct would not be, a good thing to count on. So
Okay,
I try and give you guys the storytelling portion. I try and try and tell you where I think something might be more questionable or, you know, I do my best to try and represent you guys. Essentially Heidi is just gonna double check if there are any errors and if they need council attention. Because there's always a couple numbers we will change in a line item. It may go up here or go down here, but it's not enough to really, hey, let's have a meeting and talk about it. It's the same result. So, but if something were to be major, we would definitely bring it to council's attention.
Any questions? Anything else? Zach?
Heritage Square considered a park.
Yes.
No. But we're trying to move it that way. Technically, it's right of way.
Right, okay.
What does it take to move it that way?
It's resolution essentially or ordinance.
Is that what we want? Make it a park?
I was just asking. I mean, you know, there's been a Heritage Square, they've been wanting to do something in there for. Well, you were part of that group like 10 years ago that wanted to do something with it.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, well, if we have this park reserved, if it's a park,
Good thing it fell apart because what we would have done back then
yeah.
wouldn't have been,
Yeah.
would have been inadequate.
Well, what we did 8 years ago was probably not gonna work for what.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
I just don't see, I don't see how much you can really do. I mean, you guys got some neat pictures of like a ped mall, but, you know, come on now, there's,
gotta get a vehicle.
yeah.
Yeah, and that would be up to your guys's discretion, just to kind of remind you that I dug into it maybe 2 years ago pretty hard. And we kind of came to the conclusion from Dave that if the council does any ADA improvements downtown, which is kind of where we're going, that could mess with the drainage to Heritage Square. So then I pulled back.
And it's kind of, the drainage is kind of iffy as is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So.
Okay, we motion to adjourn, and we'll take
So
a
moved.
15-minute break. Second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Start a regular meeting in 15 minutes or less.